Part 43. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 421. Although the elemental mage master and apprentice did not have the weapon, they still summoned the big dog helicopter back through their own means and dropped the spare weapons to Shepard. This was also the common method they used to provide support to Marielja and the Lost Warrior master and apprentice. However, seeing Shepard's happy and even grateful look after getting the Gustav recoilless gun, and her subsequent fierce attack on the Capricorn of the Order, Ruger always felt strange. It was like he was the top student in the class, but when a female classmate wanted to find someone to tutor her, she asked two middle-class students. But thinking about it again, it seemed normal, because they were just friends who went to and from school together. They were not so close to the top student. But this did not stop the top student from feeling hurt. On the other hand, the situation of Isandra and Li Min was not good either. Not only did they have to deal with the Nephilim controlled by the Butterfly Witch Magda, but they also had to help Sarah resist the attack of Paladin Captain Austin. After the leader of the cult was killed by Ruger once, he was 3 times stronger after resurrection. Moreover, in this kind of small team fight, his companions are all very capable, so he doesn't need to be distracted to form a large defense formation. After releasing the spiritual energy, this guy's holy light combat skills combined with sharp and experienced attacks are really a headache. If it weren't for the fact that Isandra Lyman and her apprentice were both Iron Man warriors with a set of armor with high defense, they might not be able to stop that guy if they only relied on their own magic power. But even if they could barely stop him, the situation is not optimistic. On the side of the cult, there is also a big and strong skeleton king, Leoric, who is rushing around and is not afraid of pain or fatigue. Now, it is really relying on the restrictive bone necromancy spells such as Gialia's bone spikes and bone wall to barely control the skeleton king on the opposite side. It can be heard that using bone spells to restrict skeleton kings feels like using ice spells to restrict ice elements. Even if there is no so-called immunity to spells of the same attribute, that is, skeletons cannot be immune to bone spells, and poisonous monsters cannot be immune to poison spells, but the similarity in form still makes their resistance stronger than others. As the Skeleton King's skill in removing bones becomes more and more proficient, Gialia has gradually begun to use ice spells to replace bone spells to restrict it. But her fatigue can be seen by anyone. In contrast, the Templar Cormac, the Thief Linden, and the Black Widow Spider Natasha, even if they are resurrected or transformed, can't do anything to the combination of Lugger and Tia. Their changes should have no problem dealing with the previous Lugger. But who can blame Tia for being smart and coming to support immediately when she sees the situation is not good? Lugger and Tia are the kind of partners who are already very good at fighting separately, but when they get together, they will burst out with one far greater than 2. The ability of the two to support and cooperate with each other is so strong that even Sarah is envious. With the range attack fire support of Tia's pineapple bombs, Ruger can boldly use tricky moves to find the best angle, and then hit the enemy hard. At the same time, with Ruger's precise key attack that can kill the enemy, Tia doesn't have to worry about the enemy risking their lives to focus on her first. But if those guys don't focus, it's still possible to sneak up on Ruger, but it's completely impossible to hit or even break Tia's iron armor. As a result, Sarah and her group of 6 against 5 just barely looked like a tie, but in fact they could flip at any time. But Ruger and Tia were 2 against 3, and each of the 3 enemies seemed to be killed at any time. The cult originally hoped to launch a round of bursts after the transformation, and strive to further widen the gap between the 2 sides. Even Austin had the tendency to take Sarah by force at this opportunity. But they didn't expect that a Witcherina would appear just now, and she would also transform. The most important thing is that after she transformed, she not only suppressed Lisa, one of the main forces of the cult, but also weakened the attack power of the Paladin Capricorn. This variable immediately made the cult's wishful thinking fail. But who was the most unexpected by the cult, or who made the cult hate the most? It was not the Witcherina who suddenly appeared, nor Lucia who ruined the cult's good deeds several times, nor Sarah who they were thinking about. Rather, it was the necromancer, Gialia. Although Gialia's situation is not very good now, she really used her own strength to block the Skeleton King, who was the most powerful and the strongest among the 8 members of the cult. And that Leoric was the core of the cult's transformation explosion this time. He was the sharp knife force that led others to rush directly to Sarah. The core sharp knife was stopped by an unplanned person, which made the cult hate it. She happened to have another identity, a direct disciple of a cult member. How could the members of the cult tolerate this? They were really spraying all kinds of abuse like machine guns. Even Anya on the ground was so angry that her face turned red, and she was so angry that her teeth itched. After all, that person was also a former cult member who had left the cult. But Gialia let them curse at her, and she was not affected at all. There was even no sign of a slight blush on her face. She was really like an expressionless corpse. It seems that it is easy for a necromancer and an ice mage to be expressionless. But there were people who were familiar with Gialia. Let's not talk about others, let's talk about Ruger. He also fought with her when he attacked Rogue Town. At that time, she had a rich expression. Later, when she forced herself to come up and used her friendship with Anya to stay in the second shelter, her expression mixed with that of a rogue and an innocent girl made the humans in the shelter stunned. Her acting ability is not bad at all. It's not like now, expressionless. She has no reaction to the abuse from the cult now. Either she is really strong in her heart to a certain extent and doesn't care about those guys using things from her growth experience to stimulate her. Or, she simply blocked her ears and couldn't hear. Ruger once swore that it was the latter, until several people in the cult who thought the same as him loudly conspired to attack routines, hoping to catch her off guard by linking the battlefield. As a result, Gialia blocked the key point in advance and caught the cult members off guard. At this point, the cult members and Ruger were sure that the necromancer had no problem with his ears. Really, it's just a strong heart. Is that so? You bastard, you have made up your mind to fight against the cult to the end, right? Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 422. After finally getting his hands free to perform a combo, he was counterattacked. Not to mention Austin, even the Paladin Capricorn was a little furious. What you said is really interesting. Didn't I express it clearly enough? Gialia snorted coldly. You bastard, Capricorn stared at her fiercely, and his gritting teeth seemed to be visible through the visor of the Iron Man helmet. Use that trick. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Oh, master, use that trick. That trick? Which trick? Austin was stunned by what he said, and then he understood and said in surprise, you mean, the trick prepared for Sarah Kerrigan. But, then. Don't use it now. When we lose, it will be useless to keep it. Capricorn seemed to have been so angry that he lost his mind, and said this bluntly. Austin thought for a moment with a gloomy face, and finally nodded. Realizing what trick the cult was going to use to attack Gialia, Ruger and others immediately became fully alert. It seemed that they also realized that their loud conspiracy exposed their intentions too much, and the cult had been holding back for a long time without any similar actions. They even took advantage of the Shepherd Leeman and others near Gialia who wanted to help her block the big move, deliberately made a few fake moves, and seized the opportunity to play a few beautiful counterattacks. But just when everyone gradually let down their guard and began to return to the original rhythm, the people of the cult over there actually took action again. In fact, the one who is the most idle on the battlefield now is Lugger. His skills are all in tanks and artillery. He is also the kind of guy who can control more than 10 tanks and more than 10 artillery at the same time. Now he only needs to control a Tiger heavy tank, plus the battlefield is not large, the opponent cannot give him a fatal attack method, plus the focus of others' attacks is not on him. Adding all these together, the final result is that others have used at least 80%, or even 90% or 100% of their combat power on the battlefield, and it is estimated that he has not even used 30% of the full version. Well, from the side, he really only uses 30% of his power to tie with most people on the scene in a one-on-one situation. 70% of his combat power is not used, so of course he is idle. Because he was idle, when everyone else was exhausted by the cult and had to focus on the battle, he was still paying attention to Austin, guarding against him using that big move on Gialia or others. He would not believe everything the cult said. He had been on guard from the beginning against those guys who were trying to make a feint to the east and attack the west, and then attack the north. They said they would use a big move on Gialia, but they turned around and directly decapitated Sarah. Ruger was secretly on guard, but he only paid attention to Austin, who was previously targeted by the Paladin Capricorn. He never thought that the so-called that move had been secretly transferred to someone else's hands. The cult cooperated again to hold Ruxia firmly in place. At the same time, the people on the other half of the battlefield tried their best to force Scorpio Irina back and restrict Shepard Li Min. Finally, taking advantage of the opportunity when Isandra had to protect Sarah, the witch lady Butterfly Magda, who had been useless, threw a glass bead shining with colorful crystal light to Gialia, who was playing the game of you tear down and I build a bone wall with the Skeleton King. Although it was called a glass bead, the speed at which the thing flew out was probably almost catching up with Ruger's apsts. This means that the thing was at least 3 or 4 times the speed of sound. As a result, Gialia, who was building a bone wall to intercept the Skeleton King, was hit on the forehead by this thing. She was stunned and slowly fell backwards. Soon, a colorful light flashed from her forehead and covered her body. When she fell completely, her body was also completely covered by the colorful light. Seeing that this move successfully hit her, the Paladin Capricorn over there was quite proud. "Ha, aren't you ungrateful? Haven't you forgotten that your father killed your whole family in pursuit of some illusory things, and it was the cult that saved you, so that you can still live until now? Well, then we will take back the time the cult has given you. Do you know what that colorful ball is? That's the legendary time magic, the zeroing bead. This small colorful bead can send you back to more than 10 years ago when the cult didn't help you. Let you find your childhood, your innocence. The combat skills, magic, and even countless knowledge and memories you learned in the cult will be taken away by it and returned to you clean. How great is that? You betrayed the cult and betrayed the cult's upbringing and guidance for more than 10 years, so we will take back these things you don't want. Fair and reasonable." The words of the Paladin Capricorn made everyone change color, and they all looked at Gialia in the colorful light with worry. Lugger was no exception. However, he was also wondering what this thing, this so-called time magic, was all about. Why did the cult master such a high-end ability but not use it on more important people? For example, himself. For example, Sarah. Yes, that's right. From what they said, it seemed that they didn't want to use this trick on Gialia in the first place. That can only mean that this thing was originally used to harm Sarah. Moreover, the number is extremely limited, even just this one. But if this one hits Sarah, it can really turn the tide of the battle. Sarah now is the one that Tia's father, Mr. Max, used Andariel's soul to escape from his body, found a little girl's body that had just died, and revived the little girl's body, so that she could survive. If Sarah is hit by this zeroing bead, it is possible that she will return to the state before the possession. The body dies directly, and the soul travels outside. But the fragment of the world stone on Max's body that nurtured Sarah's soul at that time is now missing. In that case, Sarah will go from a very powerful Iron Man nephew to a little girl's body plus a lonely ghost. This, as long as the cult has a way to slightly restrain the soul body, Sarah can be easily killed. Does the cult have it? Can a group of people playing Holy Light hit a ghost? Can a group of followers of the hell demons defeat wild ghosts? This is nonsense. On Longhu Mountain, in the Hades Palace, are you afraid of ghosts? The cult's trick of cutting off the firewood from the bottom is really cruel. Fortunately Giulia forced this trick out first. Even if the cult has a second one of this thing, Lugger and his people have already seen how it is used and how it hits. The next time it is used, the possibility of stopping it will be greatly increased. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 423. At least, Luodu has responded quickly and secretly prepared a batch of weapons specifically for intercepting it. Google search reading. It's just that Saint Seiya will not be defeated by the same trick twice. No, it's Tejaman who won't be. Oh, it's Nephilim. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Or, mechanic. It seems that no word can frame them both at the same time. Forget it, it's about the same idea. In short, the next attack will most likely be blocked, but this time, it actually hit Giulia. Don't say that everyone else is worried about Giulia, Lugger is even more worried and a little guilty. At this point, Giulia has proved with actual actions that she has really cut ties with the cult and abandoned the dark and joined the light. But before, when I found out that she was going to the battlefield in disguise, I also suspected that she was a spy of the cult. If he had recognized her as an ally long ago, Ruger should have shared a lot of good things for self-defense with her. It was not so easy to hit her with a broken glass bead. Now, it was too late to say anything. Soon, the colorful light that enveloped Giulia dimmed, gradually revealing her figure. The woman, who was originally more than 1.7 meters tall, was really shrunk to the size of a child. But just before the colorful light dimmed to reveal Giulia's face, a green light suddenly burst out from the body of the female necromancer, wrapping herself up again. When the light came out, everyone was stunned. But soon, several well-informed people recognized the true body of the green light. The secret of necromancy, that is the source of power of necromancy, soul energy. When Sarah and Isandra called out the essence of the green light, the members of the opposite cult stared at Giulia in the soul energy light with their mouths wide open, at a loss. Even the paladin Capricorn, who presided over the previous attack of the zero bead, was muttering to himself at this time. No, impossible, how is it possible? This woman, from her body to her soul, was created by the adults themselves. That adult is her creator. How could it be? How could she have other abilities? How could she still be related to soul energy when she returned to the soul state? Shouldn't she be a lonely ghost in hell? Why is there such a strong Lenarian aura? Damn it! Is it that Lenarian brat who did it? As he spoke, the paladin Capricorn became more and more angry. While supporting Lisa, who was suppressed by Irina, and fighting against the sheep targeting him, he actually divided his mind again and raised his hand to shoot a holy light bullet at Giulia in the green soul energy. It is called a holy light bullet, but the attributes of this energy bullet are definitely not as simple as just holy light. Although it was very fast, Ruger, who was used to seeing shells at several times the speed of sound, was able to quickly grasp its difference. That thing was white with blue, and blue with green. That green light was neither as bright as the poisonous cloud of the poisonous Andariel, nor as evil and profound as the dead soul energy around Giulia. The green in the holy light bullet was disgusting and disgusting. It was like the natural fertilizer that had been rotten in the septic tank for a long time, which made people instinctively want to stay away from it. What is this? Giulia, be careful. While warning, Ruger immediately stood up from the cockpit of the Tiger heavy tank, got out of the hatch, and mounted a weapon system similar to a rapid-fire gun on the homemade Iron Man armor, and fired a special ammunition directly at Giulia. This ammunition was extremely fast, at least 5 times the speed of sound. So although it was fired later than the Holy Light bullet and had a longer distance, it still rushed to the front of the green light of Giulia's soul energy and exploded into a blue-white lightning light net. As a result, the Holy Light bullet plunged into the lightning light net and was pushed out by another burst of lightning magic. This shell used the new defensive warhead that Ruger and Tia had just created by combining lightning magic and telekinesis, plus some inspiration from the poisonous Andariel's shield skills. Electric grid defense force field. Capricorn saw that his Holy Light bullet was broken in this strange way, and he didn't know whether to be surprised or angry. But Giulia in the green soul energy light gradually stood up and slowly grew and developed again. However, when she grew to the height of 8 or 9 years old, she couldn't open her eyes anymore, but the green light around her body was retracted, revealing a crystal clear little loli inside. However, the little girl's facial expression and body movements all revealed the shadow of Giulia before. This is Giulia. Everyone sighed in their hearts. They thought, this girl was really pretty when she was young. And the little Giulia girl quickly opened her eyes as the green light dissipated. At that moment, it was as if she woke up directly from a long sleep that spanned the ages. The first thing she did when she woke up was to look at Ruger and said to him in a baby voice, "Thanks, buddy." Doin'. After hearing the words of this childish voice of a society person, I don't know how many people fell to the ground. Even Ruger was embarrassed, and just mechanically waved back at the society person little loli. The feeling in my heart is really indescribable. After the little loli greeted Ruger, she immediately turned around and looked at the people in the cult, with her chubby little hands on her waist and laughed, "Mehaha, didn't expect it? Grandma can't be easily dealt with by just time magic." "You, who are you?" Paladin Capricorn roared in a rather frustrated manner. "Me? Roar, roar, roar. Since you ask sincerely, I will tell you mercifully. To prevent the shelter from being destroyed. To maintain the balance of the human world. Fight the supreme angel above and kick the devil of hell below. Respect the way of ancient humans. I am, the first Nephilim." "What? You are the first generation of Nephilim? The first human?" Everyone was shocked. The little girl rolled her big watery eyes, pouted her lips and muttered softly, "Why are you in such a hurry? Wait until I finish speaking." Then she coughed twice in a babyish voice, put on a serious expression again and continued. "I am one of the original Nephilim, the ancestor of the necromancer, and the daughter of Lasma, the guardian of sanctuary." Chia, Li, Yat. After saying that, the little girl also posed quite coolly, causing Li Min beside her, Anya above and other fun guys to applaud her. Seeing that someone was cheering for her, the little girl bowed to the place where the applause came from as if she had just finished performing an opera, and said, thank you for your support." She looked like a child star idol. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 424. Julia was making a fuss with a few playful friends, but others were quite shocked. Google search reading. Not to mention Sarah Isandra and other experts who know a lot about the nature of the world, even Lucia was shocked by the little guy's origin. Well, the necromancers all call themselves priests of Lasma. This only female necromancer, that is, the only priest of Lasma, is actually the daughter of the ancient Nephilim Lasma? What is going on? Lugger's side was shocked in various ways, and the church was not much better. That was Lasma. After all, even if his reputation was lower than that of the 7 demon kings and 5 archangels of hell, it was not much lower. He was a ruthless man who really experienced the great war in the world of sanctuary when the ancient Nephilim drove away the angels and demons at the same time. I heard that he was one of the main forces in that war. This is not a joke. However, although others were shocked, some people were not scared by this false reputation. For example, the paladin Capricorn, who had recovered from his shock, pointed at the little girl and cursed, "It was indeed that little bastard Lenarion who did it. As for him, this guy is sneaky and secretive, and he only knows how to roam around and hide, just like that star dragon Tago. Humph, none of them are good." Lenarion is Lasma's real name, which means the offspring of Lilith. Lilith is the daughter of the hateful demon Mephisto, a high-level demon of the burning hell, and one of the founders of the world of sanctuary. Because he felt that his real name was too hellish, the first generation of Nephilim gave himself the name Lasma. It means, as the little girl Gialia said, the guardian of the sanctuary. That Capricorn can directly call out the real name of the demon abandoned by Lasma, and he is definitely not an ordinary person in their cult. After explaining the background knowledge to Ruger, Tia said casually. Ruger thought for sure. This guy not only came to participate in such an important war as the deputy of Paladin Austin, but also spoke before Austin made his statement several times. Could he be an ordinary person? If it weren't for the age difference, I would think this guy might be Austin's illegitimate son? Or the kind who is ready to kill his father and usurp power at any time. So he has a great lack of respect for his cheap father. Being scolded by Paladin Capricorn in person, the little girl was of course furious. Even her big eyes were watery and filled with tears. But before the tears burst out, the little girl took a deep breath and suppressed the tears. At the same time, she secretly cursed her opponent and summoned a cart with her backhand. She pulled the cart like a rickshaw and walked for a while inexplicably in the same place. She saw that the cart was piled with all kinds of dead soldiers. She raised her hand and pushed the cart back, unloading the bodies onto the ground. Then, she pulled up the cart and did it again. After throwing down 2 piles of bodies, she nodded with satisfaction, turned to look at Capricorn, and shouted, "Hey! You despicable, dirty, filthy sewer rat! Do you think I can't recognize you just because you split your soul and possessed a bunch of zombies? Belair, you scum! I can smell the stench of your stinking sewer from several worlds away." What? Seeing that the little Lolita threw down 2 piles of bodies and began to curse the cult confidently, no one thought it was strange. But she actually opened her mouth and cursed Belair at Capricorn, which was something no one expected. What split the soul? What possessed the zombies? Could it be that Capricorn was not originally a member of the cult, but was forcibly controlled by Belial after being discovered? Ruger wanted to say no, because according to the System Ally module, that Capricorn had never been led by Sarah. But he thought again, he had the Ally module long after he killed the E-52, the chief commander of the Ghost. If Capricorn was captured by Belial at some point in time, or by other followers of Belial in the Paladin Order, and summoned Belial who was still burning in hell to deal with Capricorn, it is very likely that it would become like this now. Belial discovered the usefulness of Iron Man, so he separated his soul and forcibly occupied the walking corpse of Capricorn who was already controlled by the Radom worm. Therefore, Capricorn was able to escape the control of the Radom worm and was not in Sarah's command list. Well, it seems that this possibility is very high. At least, it is much easier to explain than Scorpio Irina being able to escape the control of the Radom worm. After all, it was a demon god of hell who took action personally. No one would think that he, the great Belial, would be helpless against a mere mental parasite, right? As for the witch Irina, it is not difficult to explain. She has experienced 1,500 years to come to this timeline. She has teamed up with Tia's father, Mr. Max, and fought together. there is an angel behind her. Although he is just a clerk of the Angel Council. If the Ghost, Radom Worm, and Iron Man are all so-called artifacts given by the Supreme Angel to the world-destroying rebellious Ainoa in the Lost World, then it is very normal for this witch Irina to have natural resistance to Radom Worms. At least, it is much more normal than Liji, one of the Geminis, escaping from the control of Radom Worms. After thinking this through, Ruger found that he had accepted the reality that Capricorn was Belial. That's right, if Capricorn was Belial, then it would be completely reasonable for him to not give Austin face several times before. Does the master need to save face for the lackey? Not at all. However, Ruger originally thought that Austin was resurrected once by Belial, and if Belial came directly to this world, he should use Austin. Unexpectedly, he would rather catch a Tegman himself than use Austin's body. This is really a shame, a shame. As if sensing Ruger's unkind eyes, Austin turned his head and glared at him fiercely. Ruger simply glared back. But neither of them took action. Because the little lowly over there was still scolding Capricorn, the situation was extremely tense, and it seemed that they were about to fight at any time. You are a rat in the gutter. You forget your principles when you see a little profit. You found that Andariel was not in a good state. Instead of helping her, you came over to eat up her power. The little girl pinched her waist and cursed. But you just do it. You start to cherish your body when you do big things. You don't even dare to attach ordinary souls to this world. Do you need my dad to help? Bah! With me, Giulia, it is enough to sweep you away. Wow! Little girl, don't be so arrogant. Everyone, beat me. Beat me hard. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 425. When Capricorn Belial said this, Ruger and the others all shook their heads. Google searched Can. This sounds quite powerful, but if you think about it carefully, doesn't it mean that you have to take action when you can't win with words? Moreover, he sent his men to charge first. Giulia said that he forgot his loyalty when he saw small profits and cherished his body when doing big things, which is really true. Besides, he is strong on the outside but weak on the inside, and he is fierce on the outside but weak on the inside, which is completely fine. It's just a pity that the remaining 7 people in the 8-member group of the cult finally took a breath and rested when Giulia transformed, and now they are fighting again. Not counting the others, after Capricorn Belial gave the order, the 4 monsters, the Black Widow Spider-Woman, the Butterfly Witch, the Succubus, and the Skeleton King, immediately besieged the little lowly Giulia. Seeing this, Ruger and the others immediately raised their weapons and went to help. However, Giulia roared, and the corpses around her exploded one by one. Corpse explosion. Necromancer core output. Ruger recognized the move at a glance, and hurriedly stopped the others around Giulia from getting too close. Because the attack comparable to high explosive fragmentation bombs cannot distinguish between enemies and friends. Except for the caster himself, others who enter that range will be attacked indiscriminately. It's almost like being bombed by a high explosive bomb. But then again, when Giulia used this move, although the 4 monsters of the cult rushed towards her, they actually hadn't entered the attack range of the corpse explosion. In other words, using this move at this time will only attack her friends such as Shepherd Li Min who want to get close to her to help her defend against the enemy, and cannot attack the enemy. Ruger really couldn't understand why she was so unwise. However, the next moment, he understood. Because the corpses she detonated did not just explode once. Bone-throwing knives would also fly out of their corpses. Under the dual effects of soul magic and explosion impact, those bone-flying knives rushed towards the 4 huge monsters. That feeling was just like the 10,000 swords in the fairy tale. Or a large number of cruise missiles fired by a large army. Under the automatic homing attack of countless bone-flying knives, the Skeleton King's hard armor and the airtight skeleton inside could not stop their attacks. The butterfly succubus spider woman who relied on agility to dodge the attack was directly cut into pieces by thousands of knives at the first sight. Although supported by Belial's magic, their bodies seemed to be able to retain a breath of vitality after being broken, waiting for recovery later. But over there, Giulia casually summoned a huge bone spear and threw it straight at them, and it actually pierced their souls remaining in the broken flesh. In one move, she actually killed the three witches directly in front of their master Belial. The power of the first generation of Nephilim is really terrifying. However, Giulia's move was also very consuming. Not only was she out of breath again, but the two piles of dozens of corpses around her were swept away. When the last soul-stealing bone spear was fired, even the surrounding corpse-flying knives were sucked in. It seemed that the reason why the bone spear had such great power was because it absorbed the power of the entire 10,000 swords formation. Seeing that the corpses around were used up, Giulia suppressed her fatigue and summoned the cart again, panting and pulling the cart, summoning a cart of corpses in that unspeakable way. Damn it! Damn it! Quick, don't let that annoying little girl continue to produce corpses. Don't you understand? Her fancy attacks require enough corpses to be used. Don't let her make corpses, hurry up, stop her. Capricorn Belial watched the little lowly panting non-stop, and yelled at his men again. However, after several rounds of indiscriminate attacks from both sides, the free Nephilim who were holding the scene died or fainted, unable to fight again. The 8 masters of the cult, except Capricorn Belial himself, and the 3 witches who transformed into monsters have been defeated by the little lowly. The Skeleton King Leoric was also beaten half-crippled. Only Austin, Cormac, and Lyndon were left, and their strength was intact. Looking at the opposite side, except for the little lowly Gialia who was grunting and pulling the cart, the shepherd Li Min took over Gialia's original position and guarded against the resurgence of the Skeleton King in all directions. The magic duo composed of Isandra and Irina directly restrained Austin and the other 2, making the 3 guys who mainly used physical attacks exhausted. Behind the crowd, Sarah had begun to transform the still unconscious Andariel into a demon god. Although it had just begun, the shadow of the statue gradually appeared behind Sarah, and the divine fire began to ignite faintly on the crown on her head. If Belial wanted to attack, he would have to break the blockade of the Lucia couple. That would be even harder than resurrecting the 3 witches. Faced with such a situation, Capricorn Belial was so angry that his teeth itched, but he did not dare to act rashly. After thinking about it, he turned around and threw several claw-like long poles around, and at the same time launched a force field outward, using the long poles as a guide to display a formation like an interstellar portal around. After he gathered magic power there, the magic light film in the center of the portal surrounded by the long poles began to slowly tear a crack. In an instant, countless monsters swarmed out from inside. Not good. The little lowly pulling the cart over there shouted when she saw this, and at the same time accelerated to arrange the corpses outside. Stop him, that guy is using the portal to summon the monsters of the burning hell. Sure enough. Ruger thought that it was true. Before Belial built the portal there, he guessed that this guy might call for help because he couldn't win. It turned out to be true. And he called for help from his hometown in hell. This is really a loser who can't afford to lose. Ruger was not idle, of course. The main gun of the Tiger heavy tank immediately launched an attack on the portal. But even a newborn toxic Andariel can use a shield, so how can Belial, who can use a portal, not know how to use it? At the same time that the little lowly Gialia warned, Ruger's first needle was also blocked by Belial's shield. No, it was not blocked, but was teleported to the other side, and it didn't hit at all. Toxic Andariel's attack and defense integrated shield is essentially her poison. When blocking the enemy's attack, it will also use the poison to corrode the attacker's weapon. Swords, spears, arrows, bullets. And Belial's shield here also has the properties of his portal. When the shells fired by Lugger from the front touched the protective shield outside the portal, it was like entering the portal directly, passing through the world inside the protective shield and rushing out directly from the protective shield at the back. Space folded, position jumped. Belial's protective shield was like forcibly taking the world inside the protective shield out of the plane in front of him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 426. Any attack on the shield of Belial will penetrate it directly and hit from the back. Google search reading. More than being invulnerable, it is like passing through a sea of swords and guns without getting a single blade on you. After trying several times, Ruger still couldn't break through the shield, which was a bit confusing. Fortunately, although they couldn't get in, Belial couldn't send out the monsters. Well, that's not rigorous. It should be said that although Belial cancelled the portal connected to the shield every once in a while to let the monsters inside rush out. However, as soon as these monsters came out, they would be directly killed by the range damage of Rugxia and Gialia. If there were monsters with skills such as resurrection, they would be killed twice, 3 times, or even more times. Until they could no longer be resurrected. The two sides were deadlocked again. Soon, Ruger found that the key to breaking the situation seemed to be to catch the moment when Belial closed the shield and released the monsters. But the problem was that the opposite Belial also knew this. The two sides, again, fought a seesaw battle around this time point. Feeling like it was going to take another day, Ruger was too lazy to rush, so he took the opportunity to chat with Gialia. Anyway, Sarah was transforming the poisonous Andariel into a demon in the back row. Although the progress was not fast, it was still smooth. In this way, time was on Ruger's side. It would be more beneficial for them to drag out the battle. The little Lolita over there also figured it out, and finally she was not as nervous as before. In addition, the massive amount of monsters that were blown to death was equivalent to creating countless corpses for her, and she didn't have to pull a cart to transport the corpses across dimensions. The little Lolita also calmed down and chatted with Ruger. However, she also reminded Ruger at the same time that she had a chance to stop Belial from directly summoning the monsters of the burning hell as soon as possible. Why? Ruger asked hurriedly. Because this is the sphere of influence of the supreme heaven. When he summons the monsters from the hell plane, he will naturally pull this plane towards hell. Isn't that good? In that case, wouldn't the power of heaven and hell be balanced? Tia interrupted. Oh, it's not that simple, the little loli pouted, seeming to be very dissatisfied with Tia's sudden interruption, or maybe she just didn't like her as a person. Don't you know? This is essentially the world of the lost. Although the world of the lost is the sphere of influence of the supreme heaven, it is at the edge of the universe where the holy light and magic are extremely thin and almost extinct. Under normal circumstances, if a world in the sphere of influence of the supreme heaven or the burning hell is pulled towards the other side, it will only get closer and closer to the core area of the eternal war, the Chaos Realm. And the Chaos Realm, although strange and dangerous, has a lot of vitality. Then, the power of the supreme heaven and the burning hell will be balanced. But, this is the edge of the universe, and it is also the edge of the supreme heaven. If you are pulled too much and too fast towards the burning hell, you may be thrown out of the universe and enter the space-time turbulence if you are not careful. At that time, if you are lucky, you will just be lost in time and space, and there is a chance to come back again. If you are unlucky, the whole world will be directly blasted into dust by the space-time storm and turned into nothingness. So scary, Tia sighed subconsciously. It's so scary. The little girl nodded her head when she heard it, but when she found out that it was Tia who said it, she suddenly remembered something and couldn't speak clearly. After she finished speaking, she shook her face and became angry at Tia again. "Hey, why are you interrupting again? You are so annoying. Hey, you little girl, I don't even bother you, but you dare to bother me. Look at me, I'll attack you with my chubby face." While talking, Tia had already come close to the little girl, stretched out her hands to grab her two chubby cheeks, and pulled them to both sides and even around. Well, it wasn't considered hard. At least it didn't hurt the little guy. "Nu, you, nu fuka wu, let me go. Wu sen 11 la, I'm angry." But, Tia had no intention of stopping at all. After the chubby face attack, she started the slippery and itchy flesh war again. In short, he used all kinds of tricks that were not very harmful but very playful to hit the little loli hard. Seeing that she could not beat Tia at all, the little loli immediately turned to look at the only person who could save her, Ruger. Ruger was glared at by the little loli with big eyes that seemed to be about to cry, and he really wanted to help. But after being swept by a casual warning look from the one at home, he stood back honestly. In addition, he also found that Tia had no intention of hurting the little loli, so he could only give Giulia a look of good luck, and turned his head to stare at Beelzebub in the protective shield of the teleportation array. The little loli had deliberately spoken loudly about the turbulence of time and space before. Not to mention that everyone underground heard it, even Anya and others on the ground heard it clearly. Let's not talk about how frightened they were by the inclination implied in the conversation between the little loli and Lucia to regard the supreme heaven and the burning hell as enemies. Belial in the protective shield also seemed to slow down the speed of summoning monsters. Perhaps, he didn't need to summon more monsters because he couldn't find a chance to release the monsters crowded in the protective shield. Perhaps, he believed the little loli's words and was afraid that he, at least the part of his soul attached to Capricorn, would be swept into the turbulence of time and space, so he restrained himself. In any case, things like time-space storms and void turbulence don't seem to be too worrying for the time being. The confrontation is still going on. But the little loli over there seems to have been tamed by Tia, and she reluctantly admitted defeat and surrendered, and then she was freed from Tia's continuous attacks. As soon as the little loli came out, she came to Ruger's side and kicked her leg armor hard, saying, "You guy, you forget your friends when you see a woman, and you don't have any loyalty at all." But after that, she still pulled Ruger's leg armor and circled around him until she completely blocked Tia behind him with Ruger's body, and then she exhaled carefully. When she looked up at Ruger, she became caring and stagnant again. "Brother, only you can stand that woman. Thank you for everything you have done for the safety of the universe and mankind. Accept my worship, hero." Seeing the little loli playing tricks there, Ruger's mind was clear. He thought, as expected, he had just noticed that the little girl was a little reserved when facing Tia, and she didn't dare to say words like horror and fear. Now she said this to him again. Needless to say, she must know that Tia's true identity is the god of fear Diablo. Otherwise, she wouldn't behave like this. In response, Ruger directly filtered out her antics, and calmed down Tia, who wanted to come over and continue to attack after hearing the words, and turned around to ask the little girl about her own story. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 427. For example, her background, her experience, how she came here, and what her purpose was. And so on. The little girl sighed after hearing this, and after avoiding others, she still leaned close to Ruger's ear and explained to him. In fact, the core of the matter is also quite obvious, that is the first generation of Nephilim, the guardian of sanctuary, the little girl's father, Lasma. At that time, several demon kings of the burning hell and several archangels of the high heaven fought at the location of the world stone in sanctuary. In a fierce battle, the world stone was shattered into pieces, and the entire sanctuary world was also shattered into countless fragments, scattered into the universe. As the earliest guardian of the World Stone, the little girl's father Lasma also got a piece of the World Stone fragment. Because of this fragment, the little girl herself survived. It is correct to say that Lasma is the ancestor of the necromancer. But saying that he is the first necromancer is somewhat controversial. Because the first necromancer was a disciple taught by him and his friend, the star dragon Tagore, another ancient Nephilim, Mondine. It was Mondine who founded the Rasma cult, so there were necromancers who called themselves priests of Rasma. Strictly speaking, Rasma was more like the object of faith of the necromancer. His power system was not limited to necromancy. Through thousands of years of guarding the World Stone, he also had deep attainments in fields such as prophecy. So, shortly after the cataclysm, he found that there was something wrong with what was happening. The sanctuary world should not have been destroyed so easily. This was not the original direction of the world in the long river of fate. This was problematic. However, he used the fragment of the World Stone in his hand to conduct an in-depth study of this matter. In the end, he also understood the key to the problem. The key to the problem was not outside, but inside. All this was because the World Stone itself had its own ideas. This discovery surprised Rasma very much, and also made him feel a little happy. Because the essence of the World Stone is the Eye of Anu. It is said that when the entire dark world was created, it was lonely and there was only one crystal-like spiritual body with great power. It was Anu. In the process of self-improvement, Anu felt that there were some bad things in his body, so he stripped them off, and then there was the negative crystal Tazamat. Anu and Tazamat fought endlessly and both died. The high heaven and angels appeared on Anu's body, and the 7 heads of the dragon Tazamat also became the 7 demons of hell. Hearing the little lowly say this, Ruger couldn't help but curl his lips, thinking that it was indeed the tone of the dualism of good and evil inherited by Zoroastrianism from the ancient primitive Persian mythology. This thing was later inherited by the monotheistic religion after the Akkadian Semitic lineage, and angels and demons were created. It also spread southward and was absorbed by the Vedic Brahmans and others. Later, in the anti-Brahmanism Samana trend, it was inherited by a certain Lotus sect, and changed into the 8 immortals, the Buddhist Angry Vajra, the outer demons, and the Buddhist beheading of the 3 corpses. He complained in his heart, and the little girl didn't bother to care why he was playing with facial expressions there, and continued to talk. The little girl's father, Lasma, found that the World Stone had its own consciousness, and he suddenly realized it and was also a little happy. Because the World Stone is the Eye of Anu, the creator of the entire universe, the father or ancestor of the supreme heaven and the burning hell. The World Stone has self-awareness, which may mean that the creator of the universe, Anu, has awakened. Although, this awakening is similar to Andariel reincarnating into Sarah, and a new generation of toxic Andariel is generated in her body. But after all, who says toxic Andariel is not Andariel? To be honest, toxic Andariel is more Andariel than Sarah Andariel. This not only refers to the physical level, but also to the essence of the soul. Even at the soul level, toxic Andariel is closer to the essence of the Queen of Pain than Sarah. Of course, this is not bad for Sarah, this is what she pursues. She doesn't want to continue to exist as the Queen of Pain. The same is true for the World Stone. The ancient Anu died, so the new consciousness born in the Eye of Anu is Anu. The new Anu. With this idea, Lasma found his own way. He, through the fragments of the World Stone, roughly guessed some of the ideas of the new Anu. He also saw some of the results he wanted. So Lasma decided to go with the flow. He wanted to help the World Stone new Anu to complete the transformation of the world. The World Stone did not comment on his attitude, but whether it was intentional or unintentional, it marked the space-time coordinates of the fragment of Andariel for him. Lasma could sense this place, but it was difficult for him to come here directly with his own ability. During his research, he accidentally found traces of a demon entering here quietly, and then he saw that it was Belial. Then, he witnessed the transaction process of the necromancer who asked Belial for help instead of himself, that is, the priest of Lasma. That necromancer was the man who had married Akara's daughter. After Akara's daughter died, he tirelessly sought a way to resurrect the dead. During this period, he was suspected of killing the original owner of Sarah's current body, the little girl. After Max used the power of another world stone fragment to inject Sarah Andariel's soul into the body of the little girl and complete her resurrection, he repeatedly asked Max and Sarah to tell him how to come back to life. After countless unsuccessful attempts, the necromancer finally tried to sacrifice to the demon god under the instigation of the demonic forces in order to resurrect his wife. He even sacrificed his 2 children and even himself. With the help of the world stone fragment, Lasma witnessed the whole thing. He was angry at the betrayal of the necromancer and his ignorance and stupidity. After all, this guy didn't try to communicate with Lasma, the person he should have communicated with, but asked a hell demon god to help him resurrect his wife. That's not asking the blind, that's asking the robber how to deposit the money on his body into the bank ATM. Or, the little sheep asked the big bad wolf how to shave the excess hair on his body. Is there any other possible outcome? After being eaten up, he became a laughing stock and was talked about from time to time. What made Lasma angry the most was that whenever the demon proudly told others the story, the person mentioned would be called that idiot Lasma priest. What is tolerable and what is unbearable? Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 428. Lasma didn't need to deal with the necromancer himself. Because after he made such a deal with the demon, his soul was destined to be eaten up by the demon and completely disappeared. However, the necromancer was not the only participant in this deal that blasphemed his soul. On the other hand, the demon who dared to use such a trick to blaspheme him would also have to pay a price. However, Lasma was afraid that if he took action directly at this time, he would lead the demon Belial to the fragment of the world where he was. There were still many survivors on that fragment of the world. So, he simply went with the flow and sent the soul of his daughter Gialia, who was at least 80% similar to the target soul, to Belial when he was looking for the soul needed to complete the deal with the necromancer in chaos. Therefore, the soul that was finally placed in the body of the dead daughter of the necromancer by Belial was not her original soul, but the current one, Gialia, the daughter of Lasma. Gialia had long been tired of staying in her father's not-so-big world. So when Lasma asked her if she wanted to go, she agreed to it despite her resistance to this kind of soul-transmitting method, based on her trust in her father. However, there were still some problems in the process. Although Lasma made timely remedies, he could not use many methods to avoid exposing his existence. So in the end, although Gialia's soul did not suffer any irreversible damage, she also lost her original memory after waking up in the little girl's body. Including the little girl's own memory and Gialia's own memory. Except that she still remembered her own name. Therefore, Lasma's hidden chess piece could not be activated in the first time. Fortunately, because of this, Belial never doubted Gialia's true identity. As for the name, it is already amazing for a demon god to know the name of a Nephilim, although the Nephilim is so famous that everyone knows it, well, no demon knows it. But, Gialia is a second-generation Nephilim, and she has no amazing achievements, so it is normal for the demon god not to know it. Besides, aren't people allowed to have the same name? The name Gialia is not particularly uncommon. So, things went on in this strange way. Until just now, Belial used the rejuvenation and zeroing beads that should have been used on Sarah on the annoying necromancer Gialia. As a result, not only did they fail to solve a major enemy, they also failed to make a breakthrough in the enemy's battle formation to capture Sarah in one fell swoop. On the contrary, the cult and theirs were equivalent to helping Gialia recover her memory. Of course, Lasma also helped this. Over the years, he had already discovered that there was a problem with Gialia. But because of the problem, he was more careful and could only secretly send some tonics to Gialia. But he never dared to let her eat these tonics and awaken. When Belial took action, these supplements were also activated by Lasma, and worked together with the zeroing beads to restore Gialia. Although there were still some problems, she became a little lowly, instead of the second generation of Nai who had lived for who knows how many years. This is the story of the little Lolita. And the purpose of her coming here. The reason why she subconsciously followed Ruger and others was mainly to follow Sarah because she vaguely remembered why her father sent her here. To help Sarah and fight Belial at the same time. After listening to the little Lolita's story, Ruger nodded silently. The amount of information in her words was not much, but it was definitely a secret. Especially those about the World Stone. If it weren't for the big guys like Lasma to come out and speak directly, many things might not be verified so quickly. Yes, verification. In fact, Ruger had already guessed that the World Stone had its own consciousness. Think about it, Sarah said before, how her and Max's fate lines intertwined. In between, there was a faint invisible hand guiding. And the most likely owner of this hand is the fragment of the World Stone that the two of them have owned successively. Or the person who controls the fragment. Gialia relayed Lasma's research results, which only gave Ruger more evidence for this speculation he had long ago. After listening to Gialia, Ruger digested it for a while and poked the system half-jokingly. Hey, system, you said that your essence, isn't it also a fragment of the World Stone? This idea is not abrupt at all. On the contrary, it is quite logical. But Ruger asked this question, in fact, it was mostly a joke. After all, this is too obvious and too straightforward. The more straightforward it is, the less likely it is to be true. He originally said this as a joke, but he didn't expect that the system, which had not communicated with him much, would directly reply. The reply was also very domineering. Zizi. The host completely guessed it wrong. Huh? What do you mean? It's not that the system is a fragment of the World Stone, but that the World Stone is a system, a relatively special, powerful, but too old system. Huh? Ruger felt a very complicated mood from the system's reply. The system seemed to be full of contempt for the World Stone's oldness, and somewhat envious of its powerful abilities. This complex feeling seemed to easily lead to an action, to seize its abilities and strengthen itself. Ruger thought about it and just gave it a straight answer. You want the power of the World Stone. The system hesitated for a moment, and finally said, correct. Then why don't you issue me the relevant tasks? Ruger asked again. Protecting the host is the system's top priority. The task of seizing the fragments of the World Stone is too dangerous for the host at present and cannot be issued. Yes. The system's words made Ruger confirm one more thing. Whether it is that Lasma or Tia's father, Mr. Max's alias, Rebina, they are stronger than him, and much stronger. I can understand that Lasma is stronger than me. After all, he is said to be stronger than his parents, a former archangel, and a demon's daughter. But, Rebina is just a lost bounty hunter, how can he be so much stronger than me? How many chariots does he have? How many do I have? The system was silent. Okay. Ruger thought about it and felt that the reason behind this matter might be very problematic and not simple. Maybe Rebina had another adventure, so he became stronger. Or maybe he died or was defeated in the battle and lost the fragment of the World Stone. The later person who got the fragment was a stronger guy than Lugger. This makes sense. While Lugger was listening to the story, Belial was also paying attention. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 429. Although Belial didn't hear what Jialaya and Lu Ji said, he knew they didn't say good things when he saw them whispering and glancing at him from time to time with various disdainful looks. Google search reading. Belial was very angry. But, he had no choice. There was no good way to break the deadlock. Oh no, there was, but it required more investment. And Belial, as Jialaya said, was willing to do big things and cherish his body, so he didn't want to invest. If at this time, he used the soul division to completely transfer the main consciousness of hell, with the geographical advantage of the portal connecting to hell, he would have a great chance to defeat Lu Ji and others. But he didn't dare. He was afraid of accidents. In particular, after Jialaya mentioned the time and space storm void turbulence, he was afraid that his main consciousness would come over and be crushed into powder by the void turbulence. Although he was essentially one of the 7 demon kings of the 7-headed hell of the magic dragon, even if he died, he would slowly revive from the chaos world. But when the time comes, he will be resurrected as the devil of lies, not the devil of cunning. He is afraid. If he is afraid before the battle, there is no need to fight this battle. If things were just like this, how good it would be. But, Ruger almost forgot that he was invited by Sarah not just to be a thug. He came here to help Sarah complete the transformation of the devil and serve as a medicine guide for her. The Queen of Pain, transformed into the goddess of pleasure, needs a partner and friend of the goddess to keep her happy. But, in the previous battle, he was needed on the front line. So Sarah did not call him over. Now, the situation is much clearer, but his position is. Now, his right hand is on the head of the little lowly Jialaya, and his left hand is holding Tia, who is waiting for an opportunity to tease the little lowly. From Sarah's perspective, this is definitely a family of 3. Although she told Ruger that her joy was not only about love between men and women, but also friendship between friends, and she wanted Ruger to be her confidant. But at this moment, seeing Ruger's family of 3 having fun together, she felt a slight sourness in her heart, and even pain. Pain, the pain of the Queen of Pain Andariel. As a result, the shadow of the goddess of joy behind her suddenly began to drift, and even dissipated. The divine fire on the top of her head began to transform into black smoke. Seeing this situation, Belial, who had no way to break the situation, immediately laughed in surprise. Ha ha ha, the origin is dissipating. Andariel, you still don't have the ability to turn a demon into a god. I don't understand you either. What's wrong with being a demon? Why do you have to turn a demon into a god? We are the demons of the burning hell, the ultimate evil in the universe, so what? Does it affect your eating, your sleeping, or your killing for fun? Hee, when I first came here, I found that Andariel's body was not you, and I knew that you finally embarked on this road of no return. Now it's all right, your road has come to an end. In this case, let me make use of the waste. While taunting Sarah, Belial immediately removed the portal-like protective shield. Let the countless fresh monsters from the burning hell inside rush towards the battle formation of Ruger and others. He himself, oh, this demon, rushed towards Sarah at a high speed with the power of Capricorn Iron Man's legs. As he charged, the shadow of his cunning demon god appeared behind him. It was a beetle man that looked like a half-larva and half-adult beetle that was metamorphosis. The upper body had a thick chitin exoskeleton, and sharp thorns grew on the upper joints. The evil head, like a resurrected skeleton, was also wrapped in chitin, and there were 4 long horns on the head that looked like the bottom of a globe. It seemed that it could be used as a base for some spherical object at any time. In addition to a pair of typical demon hands, there were 2 sickle claws that were like the front claws of a mantis but much larger. It seemed to be a weapon he used specifically for combat. It seemed to be the same type of organ as the 4 stinging tentacles behind Andariel. At the root of the sickle claw, there was a pair of matching shoulder armor. He seemed to think that it was a bit of a waste that his heavy shoulder armor was only responsible for protecting the root of the sickle claw, and he also spread a cloak behind him. A cloak of light that flashed the dark green light of his corrupt and decayed essence. This upper body is like a mature king beetle man. It looks mighty and domineering. However, the lower body of this demon god's phantom is a caterpillar larvae that has not yet transformed. The short hind legs are shrunk and climbed on the abdomen, as if they were born with dysplasia. It feels like the upper body is a muscular man who can participate in bodybuilding competitions and win the championship. But the lower body, well, it seems that it has never grown since birth. Both legs and even the pelvis are the same as in the baby period, there is no difference. However, seeing the true appearance of the demon god Belial, Ruger did not dare to be careless. Because this weird and inconsistent combination may symbolize the nature of the cunning demon god. It seems to be sharp, but it is actually polio. But it looks like a child with underdeveloped, but it may hide the poisonous claws of withering and decay. That's right, in Ruger's view, his lower body that has not developed abnormal completely may be his essence of the demon king who represents withering and decay. It is his origin. Just like pain to Andariel. Sure enough, after revealing the phantom, Belial immediately inhaled the black smoke emitted by the phantom behind Sarah. The way of inhaling seemed to be using the mouth of the upper body, but Ruger quickly caught that the short claws of the larvae in the lower body were also opening and closing to cooperate with breathing. Just like a blower. What's more terrifying is that the more black smoke the phantom inhaled, the faster the actual Iron Man Capricorn's speed became, and the more difficult it was to catch the figure. Not to mention that it was becoming increasingly difficult for others to hit him, even Ruger and Tia's firepower blockade began to be somewhat unsustainable. In a trance, Ruger's mind flashed, and he simply replaced the main gun of the Tiger heavy tank with a special bullet. Give up attacking Capricorn Iron Man himself, and aim at the increasingly solid phantom of the demon behind him. And, not aim at the upper body wrapped in a thick chitin shell, but the lower half that is like a sleeping larva. The shrapnel shells were fired, and they still disintegrated halfway through, releasing the shrapnel shells. But this time, the shrapnel shells were no longer tungsten alloy steel balls, but magic bullets made of magic gems such as rubies and topaz. Each one contained at least the power of a large fireball or a charged bullet. Although these were elementary magic, they were too many. The special shrapnel shells fired by Ruger were probably more spectacular than the scene of all the Nephilim in the entire rogue town firing a fireball at the same time. As soon as the large-scale composite magic like a meteor shower and a lightning storm appeared, the shadow of the Belial devil was frightened and had to stop sucking and turn around to hold up the protective shield. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 430. Even so, sporadic projectiles rushed to the phantom before Belial could defend himself, and blasted past it solidly. The parts of Belial's upper body covered with thick chitin armor didn't seem to be injured much. However, the part below his abdomen that was curled up like a larvae was like a live shrimp being thrown into a hot pot, causing it to jump 3 feet high. Taking advantage of Belial's defense against the special magic shrapnel, Luger hurriedly jumped out of the Tiger tank again and rushed towards Sarah's aid. The Tiger heavy tank's magic shrapnel attack continues. Although Tia, who took over the control of the heavy tank's artillery, was not very interested in weapons like shrapnel, once it exploded, the bomb queen immediately became interested. Taking this opportunity, Luger quickly ran to Sarah, who was extremely weak. He kept pouring life potion treatment injections into her mouth and inserting them into her neck. What? Why the neck? Because of her Iron Man armor, Luger can only open the mask. What? Will you drive anything else? Why ask so many questions? Don't think about driving every day. What kind of chest armor, waist and hip armor? Is it possible that there is no direct answer yet? Is this still necessary to answer? This is unclear. Uh-huh, but, under Ruger's careful treatment and even massage, Sarah quickly recovered. At the same time, the shadow of the statue behind her also solidified. It's just that expression, somewhat red. But, the goddess of joy, even joy okay. The method is right. It's all about healing. Treat. Sarah was revived by Lugger, and the shadow behind her would no longer be sucked by Belial. But over there, after Belial blocked Tia's follow-up artillery fire with the demonic shadow shield, 2 big sickle claws fell from the sky with his backhand, cutting the Tiger heavy tank into 3 sections. Tia herself was fine. Her skills were much more flexible due to Ruger, and she could escape with a simple jump when the situation was bad. Throw a few big pineapple bombs with your backhand and you can escape smoothly. As a result, without the restraint of the Tiger tank's main gun, Belial continued to charge forward, bypassing Sarah, and directly sucked the devil's essence from the poisonous Andariel. Seeing that the situation was not good, Sarah didn't bother to say a few more words to Lugger, so she immediately went to full speed and tried to draw the devil's origin from Duin. There is a god and a demon on both sides, just like 2 cicadas lying on the Duin tree sucking the sap. It seems that the 2 sides are balanced, but in fact the gap is very far. Sarah absorbed Andariel's origin as the demon king of pain in order to transform into the god of joy. But Belial was just the same demon god who sucked the power of the demon god. There is an extra transformation process on Sarah's side, and the speed is obviously slower. And it's much slower. If this continues, more than half, or at least 2/3, of Andariel's demonic origin may be sucked away by Belial. This won't work. If this continues, the Demon King's origin I've been assigned may not be enough for me to ignite the divine fire and complete the demon god's transformation. Sarah said anxiously. Lugger asked, what other options do you have? How can I help you? This. Sarah thought for a while, her face gradually changed from anxious to a little shy. Then, I can only unleash my power of joy. Huh, Lugger was stunned, then nodded to her with a random smile, understood. With that said, he also opened his mask and rushed towards something. What's French? French. It's not bread anyway, let alone a military salute. The original attribute was directly input by Lugger, and the shadow behind Sarah instantly seemed to add fuel to the fire, becoming much more solid and intense. The speed of absorbing the devil's origin from the poisonous Andariel also increased sharply. However, it is still not enough. So, Lugger simply turned Sarah away and took the time to look at Taya, who was eating something with a pouty face, but couldn't say anything. He waved to her and asked her to come over and join the battle group. As for Kalia, who stayed there and covered her big eyes with her hands, saying no shame, but her fingers were stretched wider than her big eyes, she was taken away by the considerate Isandra. Go back. When the battle reached this level, the Tigamans, the main force that faced the enemy before, also knew that they were unable to interfere in the rest of the matter, so they all retreated far away. Always be prepared to escape from the battlefield and escape to the ground. Kalia is a second-generation ancient Nephilim, and her blood of angels and demons is still very strong, so she still wants to stay and give it a try. But in the end, Isandra was pulled away. On the other side of the core battlefield, with Taya joining, the buff stacks. The joy of love is there, the joy of friendship is there, and even the joy of family affection is vaguely there. As for that basic physical pleasure. How could it be possible that in broad daylight, with the world clear, 3 people were blocking all their friends and subordinates, and they started to feel shameless? No. But, I can't do anything, but the memory is still there. The speed of the phantom of the goddess of pleasure behind Sarah soared. Even the black demonic energy that originated from pain beside the big mouth of demon god Belial was sucked back and rolled up, and then turned back, turning into purple-red divine power of joy. Belial, who was busy fighting with Sarah, accidentally inhaled the devil's origin and transformed it into divine power. He sneezed heavily as if he had taken a breath of pepper noodles. After finally regaining consciousness, he realized that the situation was not good and immediately waved to the remaining 4 men to come over and help. The cult originally had 8 members. Natasha the Black Widow Spider, Magda the Poison Moth Witch, and Lisa the Succubus Witch, 3 demonized women, have died. A considerable portion of the points they contributed after their death have now become the magic shells fired by Ruger, or the supplement collection for Sarah to replenish nutrition. They are dead as can be. The only one left among the 4 monsters is the empty-headed skeleton King Leoric. Seeing Belial summoning, he ran over excitedly without thinking. Seeing him so obedient, the Templar Knight Cormac and the heavy crossbow thief Lyndon looked at each other and followed him. On the contrary, the Paladin Austin, who was originally thought to be the enemy's big boss but now became a passerby, followed behind the 2 with flickering eyes, moving over there slowly and slowly. Belial is now mainly focused on playing connect the dots and elimination games. They just tried to avoid the purple-red joy power that Sarah had transformed into, and didn't listen to the pain demon's origin that was scattered in the middle. Not only the most loyal but also the most heartless Leoric came over, but even Cormac and Lyndon came over. Belial didn't even look closely. He raised the shadowy outer arm sickle and swept it across at the 3 brothers. The green light of the demon sickle flashed, and the 3 fell to the ground. Their soul origins had been taken by the cunning demon. Belial's set of actions seemed despicable, shameless, dirty, and filthy, but it was very consistent with the essential attributes of the demon of lies and the cunning demon.